Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, Digital Media Relations Manager here in Chesterfield. Very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Now, as we do each September, it is Suicide Awareness Month. I feel like, we've had this topic on the podcast several times through the years over the life of the show, and I'm very glad to have it back here today. I'm also glad to have Melissa Ackley back on the show. Melissa, how are you?
I am well. Thanks for having me back.
Very glad to have you. Very much appreciate you being willing to sit down with me for a little while and talk about suicide awareness and the campaign that we're doing again this year. Now, I always like to start with a little bit of an intro. So for folks who maybe haven't heard you on the podcast previously, I want to do that as well. So give us a little bit about your background, your current position, and how you came to kind of be in this line of work.
Okay, sure. So I am the Prevention Services Manager at Chesterfield Mental Health Support Services, also known as Chesterfield Community Services Board. So for those who may not know, that's the public mental health entity here in Chesterfield. And I also co-chair the Chesterfield Suicide Awareness and Prevention Coalition, which is a coalition of government entities, nonprofits, local businesses, people with experience related to suicide or suicide loss that comes together to really create awareness around suicide and resources that are available and do efforts. My background is I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's and a clinical license in social work. Okay. And so I started doing clinical intervention work at military bases.
Okay.
And we know that service members and veterans are at particularly high risk of suicide. And then in 2001, I shifted to more upstream work. So right here where I live, work, and play in Chesterfield County. Yeah. And so I joined the prevention team at Chesterfield Mental Health.
And so you've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and I can imagine that over the course of your career, we've learned a lot about various aspects of not just mental health, but how to talk about it, how to help folks when it comes to these types of things. And certainly, having this campaign each September, I know is near and dear to your heart. It's something I know you guys work really hard on. Each September, we obviously promote suicide awareness in a variety of different ways as part of this campaign and sort of in concert with that Suicide Awareness Month. I like to kind of set the table by focusing a little bit on what's different about September aside from the calendar. And what I mean by that is, like, what happens this month that maybe is a little bit different versus other months? Like, how do you guys really embrace September being Suicide Awareness Month beyond just the campaign itself?
Yeah. So September is really internationally recognized as Suicide Awareness Month, a time dedicated to raising awareness about suicide risk, promoting hope, and normalizing help seeking. So as you said, of course, we're working on this topic year round. Right. But in September, we really try to increase our reach of our efforts. And each September, the coalition chooses a particular resource or risk population to highlight. Right. And so while we know that anyone can be at risk of suicide, we try to draw awareness maybe to a particular population during this month. And
then there's also the resource fair, which we'll get to it just in a minute. But I know that there's a lot that goes into a lot of the various sort of decisions that come with this. As part of this campaign each year, obviously we focus on, to your point, a different aspect of suicide awareness. And for, in the years past, we've done older adults, we focused on veterans, we focused last year on the co-response here in Chesterfield County to mental health emergencies. This year, we're focusing on the link between addiction and suicide. Why was that the kind of topic, the focus that was chosen by the coalition as the focal point for the campaign? And what does the data say? What does the science say about the links between these two things?
So people struggling with addiction have much higher rates of suicidal thoughts, suicidal behaviors, and completed suicide than people that are not struggling with addiction. And that's for a variety of reasons. Yeah. One is that when people become addicted to things such as substances or gambling, their brain's reward systems really get hijacked. Okay. And so while normally the brain releases dopamine in response to things like food or social interaction or achievement, using substances or kind of the high of a gambling win can trigger these dopamine surges beyond what natural rewards produce. And then eventually everyday pleasures don't
They don't do the same thing.
Exactly.
They don't get you to the same place.
Exactly. So that can lead to an increase in the addictive behavior and a propensity towards depression when not engaging in that behavior. And we know depression is highly linked to suicide. We also know that addiction and suicide often stem from overlapping vulnerabilities. So the mental health disorders, social isolation, stigma.
Right.
And for people struggling with addiction, they also have that additional shame and stigma.
Right. Yeah.
And isolation. And those that care about people struggling with addictions sometimes are more focused on the addiction than thinking to look for signs that they might be thinking about suicide.
I know that, and it's interesting because the more you think about it, the more it makes sense, right? That in a lot of ways, these two trains are on sort of similar tracks in the sense that a lot of the same sort of maybe like you were referencing sort of the way that the brain thinks about those responses. But it's like when those two trains collide, it's especially problematic on a variety of fronts. And I know that one of the things that we're focusing on, in terms of this campaign is not just like the substance use aspect of addiction, but it's also the problem gambling piece. And I feel like when people hear addiction, they don't necessarily go to problem gambling. They immediately go to substance use, right? I think as a society, we are very conscious now in ways that historically we just haven't been. But even problem gambling, I think, is something that's still a new sort of concept for a lot of people. Why was problem gambling behavior included in this sort of mix of addiction? Why do we not just focus on substance use, in your opinion?
Sure. So research shows that people with gambling disorders have one of the highest suicide attempt rates of all behavioral addictions. In some studies, up to 20% of people with gambling problems have attempted suicide. And
wow.
We can kind of understand why, right?
Yeah.
Many people who think about suicide have experienced an event associated with loss, accompanied with a feeling of hopelessness.
Right.
And you can see how that can relate,
right?
To
especially if if you're down on, you've lost a lot of bets in a row, that kind of thing.
Right.
And to your point earlier about the science of it, right? It all makes a lot of sense in terms of the way the brain reacts. But I feel like in our society today, as a sports person, I am, whether I want to be or not, right, I am inundated with gambling all over me, all around me. You can't watch games anymore without, that being a big focal point. So I can understand that is also something that, professionals such as yourself, those who are on the front, like you're seeing probably a lot more of this because it's just so much more accessible these days than it ever has been.
Right. It's something we're increasingly concerned about as our access to gambling in our community and our access to marketing for gambling in our community becomes so much more readily available and is, in fact, at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And we talked about earlier about the hijacking of the brain's reward system. The earlier you start engaging in these behaviors, whether it's substance use or gambling, the more likely that affects your brain's wiring because your brain is still developing.
Right.
So we are particularly interested in looking at increasing awareness and prevention efforts with our younger folks.
And it makes sense then as to why that, was a focal point of this campaign. Speaking of, obviously, Mental Health Support Services is planning a mental health resource fair on Thursday, September the 18th from 3 to 7 p.m. at Beulah Recreation Center. Can you tell folks a little bit about some of the resources that will be available there and what they might expect if they go to Beulah that afternoon?
Yeah, so we're really excited about the event. You can stop by at any point in the day. It's not something you need to plan to stay from 3 to 7. Come at any point. We are going to have a variety of public sector and nonprofit resources related to mental health awareness and treatment, problem gambling awareness and treatment, substance abuse awareness and treatment, as well as recovery organizations.
Right.
We are also going to have the opportunity to experience AccuWellness, which is a 5-point needling technique for the ear that helps to relieve symptoms of stress and cravings. So we have that experiential opportunity. And we are also going to have Narcan training. So Narcan is a drug that can help to temporarily reverse an opioid overdose. So we are going to have training for that available. I'll be giving out free Narcan on site.
Oh, that's great. Now, relatedly, I know there's a chance that, folks who hear this, there's a very real likelihood that there's somebody who is, maybe they themselves or somebody they love are dealing with these types of things. but maybe they're not quite ready to sort of get in the car, go to Beulah, walk into a recreation center and, walk up to a table or receive some information. So for folks who maybe are in that situation, but the idea of coming to this kind of public event is a little too much, what do you advise those folks to do if they might have, what they would describe as like these types of problems, or maybe they don't even know what they are, but they're just interested? Maybe somebody in their life, there's something in there that they want to talk to somebody. How would you advise folks to, what would you advise folks to do in that situation?
There are a variety of resources available in our community. The Virginia Council for Problem Gambling has a problem gambling hotline, 1-800-GAMBLER. It's actually an international number, but it will ring locally here in Virginia.
Cool.
That can provide resources and information and support connections to treatment for people that are concerned in that area. There's a live RVA addiction recovery warm line that's staffed by people that are in recovery themselves from a substance use addiction. That's 1-833-4-PEER-VA. So it's another great number to call. And then people can visit our website, Chesterfield.gov/prevent suicide. That's chock full of resources and more information about these topics. And of course, Chesterfield Mental Health is available as our public treatment provider for mental health and substance use services, and their number is 804-748-1227.
Good deal. Well, Melissa, I'll get you out here on this one. We talked a lot, obviously, about the campaign itself and the science and the data behind why these two things are sort of linked. What do you want people to know? What do you want them to take away from our conversation here today? What do you want them to know about the link between addiction and suicide?
I think it's really important for people who are struggling with addiction or mental health challenges or thoughts of suicide to know that there is hope and there is help, and that if you can take that first step to reach out for help, there are a community of people who really are ready, willing, and able to help.
Right.
And that for those out there who care about someone who may be struggling with addiction or mental health challenges or thoughts of suicide, we want to think about those just like we would think about any other health concerns and treat them like that. So talk to the person.
Right.
Don't talk about them.
Right, yeah.
Help. Reach out for support, connect them to immediate resources and connect them to emergency resources if they're needed. I recently learned a quote from one of my coworkers, and it is, hope is not the light at the end of the tunnel, it is the light within the tunnel, and we all have within us the ability to be that light for people we know that are struggling.
Yeah. One of the things real quick before we wrap up that I do want to mention that I've always, I don't know how to frame this, but it was kind of an eye-opening experience for me the first time we worked together on this campaign, was the idea that asking someone if they've had these sort of thoughts, if they've had these, is not going to incline them to do something. That where we might think like, oh, well, don't bring this up because we don't want them to focus on this or to think about this, right? It's not like that. And so if you do know someone that you think might be dealing with types of issues, talk to them about it. I think that is, again, I go back to the first time we were, and I read that, and it was really eye-opening for me. And so I know as we've gone through years of this, that has always been something that's stuck with me. So if you are somebody out there who maybe there's somebody in your life who you think might be dealing with these types of issues, talk to them, ask them questions, inquire. Because like you said, that hope inside the tunnel, it can come from those around you, from people who care. And sometimes that's all it takes to help and take you, like you said, take that next step, that first step in the right direction. But Melissa, thank you so much for being on the show. Very much appreciate you coming and talking to us about Suicide Awareness Month. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield Virginia, all one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that you get your shows. And if you're so inclined to give us a rating or review, we appreciate it. As always, a video version of our show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make a suggestion, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That is Comcast Channel 98, Verizon Channel 28. Lastly, check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find out a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the good folks from Constituent Media Services for all they do. And my thanks to you for joining us today. So from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making us a part of your day. We'll see you again soon. Take good care. From
From blogs to podcasts. And I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again.
Weekly video segments and newsletters.
Social media, the latest community news.
And this is your Chesterfield News Minute for September 19th.
How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.